All right, guys, we are back here at the Nucleus Hub live. I'm really excited about this because I have a very special guest for our Kinetic event that we're going to have everything about the legal side of the creator economy. And the person we have here today, he's going to be one of the speakers. I'm truly excited. Please help me welcome Vivek Jayaram. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How you doing, Andrew? Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. It's a pleasure to be in front of you in this kind of setting where, we cross paths, we've been in some events, we talk, but now we're creating content.
Yeah, and here we are in the Nucleus Hub. This is great. I'm happy to be here. It's a beautiful building you have here down in the Grove. Or are we in Coral Gables?
We're in Coconut Grove. You got it.
Yeah. No, it's great. Great to be here. Good to see you. And always happy to be a part of the Nucleus Hub.
I really appreciate it. And one of the biggest things that, just seeing what you do in your profession is the fact that you are participating in the creator economy. There's a lot of times where, you'll see people, they're doing stuff, and for other people in their industry, but they've never had the experience of doing that, where you're actually putting yourself in it as a creator first, and then, you being a lawyer, so it's one of those cool things that I'm really excited to talk about today.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you just kind of go back, whatever, you can go 20 years, 30 years, and then 50 years, 100 years, whatever. I feel like, people sort of produce and make and then distribute and allow others to sort of, read material, learn material, essentially consume content in so many different ways, right? And so my view is listen, a generation ago, 2 generations ago, lawyers would just write articles that would end up in books and newspapers and magazines, right? A generation ago, we started writing academic things on on blogs and websites and stuff like that. And I feel like today, this is how people are connecting with each other. This is how people are sharing information with each other. And I think it's a big miss to not try to sort of, be a part of that experience and kind of get your sort of thing out to a big group of people.
No, 100%. And you yourself, you've been practicing law for many years.
Yeah, almost 20 years.
So, you've seen the creator economy evolve into what it is today. So for you, having practiced law for so long, when was that first moment that you're you know what, there's something very interesting about this creator economy and I got to start getting my feet wet in it and bringing, your skill sets of being a lawyer into this world?
Yeah. No, I think, thanks for that. So as I said, in a few months, I'm going to be at 20 years, of practicing, right? And for almost that entire time, I've worked a lot with artists, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, technology engineers, painters, visual artists, mixed media artists, digital artists. And so the idea of working with creators, even though that wasn't a word that we really used, beyond maybe the last 6 or 7 years, right? Even though I didn't use that word, I've spent most of my career with creative people who are trying to make something and put it out into the world, whether that's a movie or a painting or a software product or, a piece of clothing or whatever it is, it kind of emanates from this constant practice of reducing an idea to an actual sort of executable something that's put out into the world. And so I think it only makes sense, as the internet matured and as now social media matured and people realized, I think, that there's some real extraordinary power in this worldwide distribution model of social media and the internet. And so it seems to me only natural that people would then use these largely free platforms and tools to create content that can, totally share it around the world.
Totally. And I think we can both agree. And, once you tap into it, it's exciting, right?
For sure.
You start creating content, it's all right, especially for your own brand, your personal brand, your business, you're all right, cool. This is cool. Now I can't wait for these videos to go viral, this content to hit, and there's that whole exciting aspect of I want to see the monetization. I want to see the growth. I want to see the conversion. And people, so many times as creators, we focus so much on the creating side only and, the optimizing side only, which, don't get me wrong, it's important and we have to. But I think many times, at least for me, even having, ran into Greg and meeting you, and it just made me opened my eyes even more on the legal side of things. Doesn't mean that me as a creator now I have to go and literally do that, but it makes me understand, wait, there's a whole nother world to this.
Totally.
Let me go find the help and the right advice and the right team that can help me as a creator, so I can not only, you know, protect myself, but actually I produce more and achieve more. Because I think one of the biggest things, and I know one of the things me and Greg talked about, was, you know, the fact that, you know, there's always this somewhat of like negative connotation on lawyers. You hear lawyer, it's always a problem. There's a problem. You know, that's when you get a lawyer, because there's a problem where you have to, you know, there's an issue going on here. Now you have to go solve that issue. Go get the lawyer involved, you know, where it's like here, it's like, wait, it can be actually a positive, you know, where it's like, no, I have my team of lawyers or my lawyer that helps me to make more money through these brand deals and helps me to pave the way in a much easier fashion for me to just go and do what I'm good at. So, you know, for you, you know, having worked with all these artists and creators and all this stuff, like, what are some of the biggest, like, I guess, common issues that you see initially amongst, you know, these, you know, high status entertainers and creators that just happens, you know, frequently in this creator economy?
Yeah. So you hit on something that I think is important to talk about, at least for a quick second, right? Like, I think the reason people have this perception of lawyers has a lot to do with how lawyers are historically and traditionally trained, right? So, like, I believe, and I think, you know, we at our firm believe that, you know, law is just a tool, right? It's a tool that you have in your toolbox to solve problems, right? I think historically, a lot of lawyers, and certainly the public, maybe has this perception where lawyers are really there to identify all the problems with an idea, make sure that the idea stays strictly in compliance with all the rules, right? And that we are somehow here to gatekeep the idea, right? And listen, I've met hundreds, if not thousands, of lawyers who probably do, you know, practice by that philosophy, but that never spoke to me. That never really resonated with like who I am and what I think the like role of people and artists and creators really are, right? Which is to put something out into the world and sort of let us all consume it and experience it and react to it, right? Respond to it. So I really think, as you said, that, you know, law is not meant to like stop you from doing things. It's actually out there to be used as a tool to help you do things, right? And so I think approaching it with that in mind is a really good kind of like starting point, you know? And from there, I would say, you know, the things that I think I see most, like if you are a creator and you're making, you know, content for Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or something like that, right? You're essentially creating like, you know, a short film or like, you know, something like that, right? It's a short piece of like, you know, it's a moving picture, right? It's content. And so you need to keep in mind all the things that you would have to keep in mind, you know, I don't know, if you're making like a documentary or you're making like a feature-length film or something like that, right? It's just obviously pared down substantially in terms of like the length and the volume of things you probably have to look at. But the few things that I think are really important for creators to look at, most of that relates to clearing your content, right? And what do I mean when I say, you know, clearing content, right? Well, listen, if you go to the movie theater and you see, you know, some big, you know, major motion picture put out by a big studio, you know, 2 hour, 3 hour movie, right? Whether it's a drama or animated movie or a comedy or whatever it is, love story, right? You probably don't know, but like every shot, everything you're seeing in each, you know, sort of, shot of the movie, right, has been cleared to ensure that there's not any intellectual property that is up on the screen that the studio didn't get a consent to show to, you know, viewers all over the world.
Gotcha.
Right? So, for example...
And it could be simply as the logo on the back.
It could be a logo. So if you have a character who's recording a podcast in a studio and you've got logos in the background, that might be a problem. If you've got somebody sitting in a restaurant and, you know, they're sitting next to two people, right, and you never got their approval to be in the movie, right, they don't know that they're being filmed and they're in the movie, that might be a problem, right? A really big one, right, and the creators, now I'm looking at you, right? If you decide to like publish a reel or something like that, and you soundtrack it with a really dope track and like your favorite song or like the big hit of the summer or something, right? Well, that really should be cleared also. Now, of course, if you're just using the sound library or something like that on TikTok or Instagram, that's all legal because Instagram and TikTok have struck really big deals with the record labels, right? But these are the kinds of things I'm talking about. So when you're talking about, when you ask me the question, what are the things that creators should be sort of on the lookout for the most? My head goes straight to intellectual property and publicity rights. And so intellectual property is copyright, trademark, and patent and trade secrets as well, as those don't really, aren't really relevant to this, but copyright and trademark, right? So copyright is any kind of piece of content within your content. So a song, an artwork, a painting, anything like that, a movie that appears on a screen within your, content, right? All those things are copyrighted things that belong to somebody else. And if you want to use those things in your content, they got to be cleared. Trademark is like a brand name, a logo, right? So Nike, think of the Nike swoosh, just do it, right? If you just right now, like, threw the Just Do It Nike logo up on this, screen and did a few things to make it look like, somehow this is affiliated with Nike or something like that, that's trademark infringement, right? So you got to make sure that your content isn't stepping on other people's copyright rights or their trademark rights. And, listen, if you're just getting started, right, and you've got like a couple thousand followers or something like that, like no one's probably going to come after you for this.
Yeah.
But as you grow, and I know now here at Nucleus, you guys are working with some creators who have like a real following, that's really when you're going to gain more attention. You're going to probably be a little bit more exposed to these kinds of issues, right? And so it's always a good idea to make sure, especially if your following's growing, to make sure that you're not using somebody else's IP within your piece of content, right? And then the other part of it is the publicity rights. Well, publicity rights are name, image, and likeness. So same thing, right? Like you can't be using, people's name, their image, their likeness, like within your content, unless, of course, you're reporting the news or you're creating a parody or you're creating something like a satire, right? So a lot of meme pages are really interesting from like an IP standpoint or meme creators who really like to play around with memes and like to joke around and, tell jokes and things, because those things, parody and satire, are protected under fair use, with the idea in the United States being that like, hey, listen, yeah, we've got these IP rights and yeah, people have publicity rights, but they also have First Amendment rights. We want people to be able to freely express themselves. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. And I think there's so much value in that, because, as a creator yourself, you start listening to this, I'm listening to you. It's like, sure, hearing at the conferences and already have spoken to you guys and, hearing you guys from being in my network, I'm like, I pick up some of these things quicker, but for a first-time person, they might be like, whoa. And this is why they need somebody like yourselves on their team, And
totally.
And that's where I think too that what I love, about where our space is going is that, especially with what you guys are doing, is that, looking at the lawyer as more of their team, not just something that they're bringing on to only solve problems. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think the best client relationships I think I've had in my career, and the ones that, like, I think if you were to ask the clients, they might have felt like they got the most value, I guess you could say, out of working with us or me, right, are the ones where you're really closely involved to the actual project, right? I always tell young lawyers this, right? If you're the kind of lawyer that simply just is known and capable of drafting really good documents, then the client's going to come to you when they need a document drafted, right? But if you're the kind of lawyer that really understands the business that your client is in, right, and you're really paying attention to the industry and their business and its challenges and things like that, right, then you're going to get the call even before any documents that be drafted. You're going to get a call when there's like a strategy that needs to be discussed, right? And the idea is getting flushed out, right? And I always tell young lawyers, that's really where you want to be. Because as I said before, right, the law is just a tool to kind of get things done, right? But if we as advisors and counselors, if we can be integrated into a client's team, right, early in a project.
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah, how early in your project, because, the thing that happens to us so much, right? And this happened to me, in the early part of my career a lot with documentary films, and later in my career with sort of more feature-length films, but then now last many years with creators and other people just kind of making commercials, other digital content, digital artwork, all kinds of different things, right? You see, they come to you at the very end after everything's done. They're like, I need you to clear this. We're airing it next week. Blah, 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 right? And sometimes it might not even be like on major networks and things like that, right? And the difficulty in that is it's really hard to clear, a long piece of content and say everything's fine, right?
Yeah.
Usually there's going to be a couple of things that, hey, it might be a little too risky or whatever, but like a lot of the bigger problems you see, right? Like, oh, hey guys, did you license that song, or did you have a release from this, brand that appears throughout your content, whatever, right? Like a lot of those things can be solved early on, right? If the lawyer is consulted early on, right? So I think it's important for content creators, filmmakers, other producers of things, right? To you can actually save time and money by working with your lawyer early on, right? Because if you tell them what the idea is, you tell them what you're going to do, they can give you some early guidance, right? The do's and don'ts, whatever. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is we get the thing at the very end, we try to make some adjustments, and obviously to make, changes in the 11th hour sometimes can be very expensive, sometimes can push the wrong buttons, right? So your comment about having a lawyer being integral part of the team, I think is really, really good advice, because I think we do our job better the more we know the business and the more we know the product and the project, right? So when we get pulled into a project, later, it's not that we can't do it. We still can. And frankly, we're doing it all the time, right? But I think our effectiveness and certainly the efficiency of the whole process is well served by meeting on it early on.
That's amazing. And there's again, so much truth to what you're saying, because I think that one of the biggest misconceptions as well is, right, when you're starting your business or your brand, it's like, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not seasoned yet. I'll wait. I don't need that yet. I'll hire them later, and you're saying try to get them as early on into your projects and into the things you're doing, because, when you have that early on involvement, it just helps to create a much easier and clearer path for that business owner, creator, etc. So, bringing that up, I think just for a lot of people out there, where in their minds, it's usually the other way around. It's like, wait, okay, not in this case.
100%, man. You really hit it on the head. I was literally dealing with this today on my way over here. I'll just tell you a quick story. I mean, I've got a client who is starting a brand, right? They have to remain anonymous, but in this kind of sports fashion kind of space. And they decided they didn't want to do a trademark search, right? Early on. Too expensive, didn't want to spend money, totally understood. But, I said to them, well, if you're going to move forward with this trademark without a search, there's a good chance, not a good chance, but there's a chance that maybe somebody else is already using a similar name, right? We don't know. The way we find out is by doing a search, right? I'm like, well, that search is pretty expensive. We did a Google search. We looked, I don't really see anything. Totally fair, whatever, right? They just got their first shipment of stuff, which is very exciting. It's going to be launched in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And they found out last night that they found out through their FedEx shipper, who was helping them get all their product from overseas over here to be able to sell, who said to them, "Oh, funny, there's another company with that name that we worked with a few months ago," and they were just kind of blown away. And so we looked into it, and sure enough, there is somebody else, right, who's got a similar name doing something arguably kind of similar, and had we done the search, we would have found out about them, right? They couldn't do it. So now we're dealing with it. We've got a plan to deal with it, and it's going to cost them about 3 times as much.
Wow.
Right? To be able to get this thing off the ground. And now, and they were also confronted with the really horrible choice of okay, well, if we were now going to just change the name because of this problem, right? we've got $40,000 worth of product sitting here,
which is a bigger problem.
So, that's just one of like a million, early stage, horror stories that you hear about. And I know it's really hard for entrepreneurs and for founders, for creators, for artists, right? Because usually the early stages are when you're bootstrapped. But the problem is the early stage is when all the kind of, difficult legal work needs to happen.
It can cost more later.
Exactly.
Like you said.
Mm-hmm. Because to get things set up properly, the right way, it's hugely important. And it's not hugely expensive, but everything is hugely expensive when you're just getting started, I mean, I started something 15 years ago, like $100 was like, I'd rather save that $100, but I don't have to spend it, right? And I'm sure, you would.
And let's also point out the fact, especially in today's economy.
Yeah.
$100
doesn't go that far. So I think it's not really a warning shot or anything like that to creators. It's just like, I think also a lot of times people are turned off by going to see a lawyer, right? And what they don't realize is like it could just be a conversation with another helpful person, like the many other helpful people that you've talked to along the way, right? And it doesn't have to be extraordinarily expensive. And a lot of times, what we end up seeing is we'll get on the phone or get in a meeting with somebody who early stage entrepreneur, creator, whoever, and everything they want to do is going to be expensive, but like, they've also got like fundraising like planned along the way. They're actually planning on converting their content into revenue in like a few months, right? So a lot of times what you can do is help them with the really critical things right at the very beginning where they need it, but keep it really efficient, right? So they're not spending a ton of money right away, but then giving them a plan and be like, listen, when you free up this capital, you should do this. When you free up this, you really should do this, right? And so a little bit of planning, like in anything, can really help even with legal.
Love that. Awesome advice, and I think that for any creator out there, any business owner who's listening to this, they definitely got to come to the Kinetic event because they're going to go much deeper into some of these topics. And, it allows for them to ask these hard questions sometimes. Who knows, there might be some problems that we find out about some of these creators in the audience that, they might need some of your help. So I'm excited to be able to, listen, experience that, and, see those interactions at the Kinetic event. Now, I wanted to ask you before we start wrapping up, we're talking about, solely the creator, right? And the creator is a brand themselves. But how about that business or a creator who has like their product or service that they sell, and now they're looking for other creators as getting them as influencers or doing a deal with them, for the brand side of things. How does that play differently versus the creator itself? When you're creator working with a brand, now a brand working with the creator.
Yeah.
I want to touch upon that a little bit before we're up, because I know there's the creators, but there's also here a lot of business owners that work with other creators and hire them, or creators that have their business and they bring on other influencers and stuff to help them.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's both similar and I guess a little bit different, right? From the brand side, right, there's really two concerns. You've got all the concerns that I just talked about that from the creator side, right? If you're the brand, right, if you're, Publix and you're hiring a creator to like do their thing, like promoting Publix in some way, right? Well, Publix has to make sure that that post or that piece of content is fully cleared. So that means, publicity rights cleared, copyright, songs, images, things like that in the thing cleared, trademarks cleared, right? If they're going through the aisles, right, and they're looking at products, okay, do they have the license to show all those food trademarks in the piece of content? Maybe they do from their wholesale retail sort of deal with the food manufacturers, but we don't know, right? So these are just things to look at, right? But the brand has to make sure the video is clear, so that's number one. And then two, right, there's going to be a deal between the brand and the creator, right? And this is, where both sides have a lot to sort of think about and learn, right? Like, okay, so what's the creator's commitment, right? Where is the creator supposed to promote this post? How often, right? Is it one post? Is it more? Have we agreed on a caption, right? Can it be Is it going to live on the creator's grid? Is it going to like just disappear in stories? Like what's going to happen, right? And so all these things, right? In the early days, I'd say 10, 11 years ago, something like that, like, we would...
It's not the wild, wild west.
Yeah, someone would just hire someone and literally, like, pays them a fee, and they're like, can you just post this on your time?
Even myself as a creator.
Yeah, for sure, right? Now, these deals are about as, it's progressed, right? It's elevated, it's sort of, like, scaled over time, but now... for the bigger creators doing deals with like big brands, those look like any other talent deal. So you're going to have morals clauses, right? So if the creator ends up finding themselves in a really bad sort of public PR debacle or nightmare, right? That might give the brand the right to terminate that agreement and pull the posts, right? It'll have the fee may be structured as a flat fee, but then like also there might be milestones or metrics for like, depending on engagement and like, click-throughs and whatever else, right? So there's all kinds of like metrics and terms that need to be agreed upon between the brand and the creator. But from the brand perspective, you absolutely need to make sure that the content is cleared, right? So that's the number one thing. And then the number two thing is making sure that you have the deal wrapped up with the creator, right? So yeah, I think those are like some of the things to think about.
Amazing things. Well, I'm truly excited. It's been a pleasure to be here today and learn more myself.
Awesome.
And I know the audience is going to get a lot of value from this. What are you looking forward to the most, being one of the speakers at the Kinetic event that we're going to have on May 31st at 6:30 p.m.?
Yeah. What I really love about these kinds of events, whether I do it a lot at like various like art schools or like in a university setting or like even at companies or, art studios or wherever I do it, I really like hearing the perspective of the creators, of the artists. And so I think, I know we're going to be talking about, so it'll be nice to set the table with some of these legal issues, of course, but in terms of like being able to do some Q&A with the creators, talking with them afterwards, doing some of the content creation with them. I think what I've found, after 20 years is if one artist or one creator has a question or concern, it probably affects a bunch of them. And so I find like evenings like this are a really nice and sort of natural way to kind of, anecdotally just hear sort of what is bothering or concerning somebody, but then knowing that that little concern, as microscopic as it may seem, is something that is probably, relevant to everybody else in the room. And I think that it has the tendency to open up some really cool conversation. And I'll be available. My colleague, I think Christina's going to be here. Greg Levy's going to be here. And so I think the people in the room are going to have a very sort of unique opportunity to talk with practicing lawyers about like, things that can help them protect and grow their business.
I'm excited, and it's going to be an honor to have you there speaking. So looking forward to it. Guys, please connect with Vivek. Where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? Where's the easiest?
Best place to find me is on Instagram. It's at Vivek Jayaram, VivekJayaram. I'm on TikTok too. You can hit me on LinkedIn, but Instagram's probably, where I play the most, I guess.
There we go. You guys heard it. Start to get your team right. Let's get it. Kinetic event, May 31st, 6:30 p.m. We'll see you there.
See y'all there.